I hope to be in your position, and I want to make sure that I know this. And I shut up, and he shut up, and he looked at me. If looks could kill, we're talking mass murder. He said, "You've made your point." And I said, "How do I know I made my point?" Are you willing to deal with me with dignity in front of other people from this point on? I need to know it. And I respect your word, and I know you would deal with me with full integrity. I know your word's good. You'll never break it. Not ever. He said, "Yes, I will." I said, "Then I know I've got your word on it." And I held my hand up until he shook it. He would not, his ego would never allow him to even raise his voice to me again. That was the best job I ever had when I worked for somebody else. I could have been fired for doing that. The meaning some people imputed to it was that I was being berated and that I was being belittled. The meaning I put on it is this man had a serious problem and I was going to deal with it. You can have misunderstandings nowhere near that aggressive. Please, if you have to work for a boss like that, wait until he walks across the road and really gun the motor and put it in a gear. So it's evolution's way of cleaning out the race. Okay, I'm teasing. You don't really have to do that. Call me. I'll do it for a serious amount of money. Yes?
The problem I find is that usually the first time I realize I'm in trouble is when they hand me the pink slip.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's sort of like open mouth, insert foot. Because I always think of those things to say.
I'm fired. What did I do? Why?
What I asked a boss. I had a boss once. He asked me, "You treat me like an asshole?" I said, "Is that a trick question?" Everybody's laughing except him. He's getting redder and redder and redder. I said, "Hey, it's just a question."
No, what I'm saying, I tend to need things to look for to notice that they're getting cheesed off, because usually by the time I notice they're annoyed, it's when they say, "You're fired, clean out your desk and leave."
Okay, let me show you. Has anybody ever been fired? It's a good thing to be. Being fired is a good opportunity to learn. I've been fired. It's important to be fired at least once in your life. You know why? Because you realize that you don't die after you're fired. You know, you go, "Oh, I can survive firing. I guess." You know, it gives you a sense of security after you've gotten through that. "Oh, why do they want me? I give them the best years of my life. I give them the best 3 hours." If you've been fired, let me give you a technique. How'd you like to be rehired on the spot? If anybody gets fired in the next 2 weeks, I can call a technique. It goes like this. And this goes back to misunderstanding. The boss fires you. "Get out of here," blah, 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 blah. Go into his office with him. "I need to talk to you for a minute. We have nothing to say." "I understand we have nothing to say, but I need to talk to you in the office." "I'm done." "I understand you're done, but I need to talk to you in your office." "God damn it, did you hear me?" "Yes, sir, I heard you, but we need to talk in your office." "God damn it, aren't you listening?" "I am listening, and we need to talk in your office alone." Can you do that? "I won't do that." "I understand you won't do that, but can we go in your office anyway?" I repeat back what they say, and then I tell them what we're going to do. "Can we do this?" "No, we can't do that." "I understand that. Could we do it anyway?" "I told you we're not going to do it." "I understand that. It takes a lot of courage on your part to continue saying that, but we need to go in your office. Can we do that, please?" And invariably, they have one less, "We ain't going to do it," than I have, "Can we do it?" So we go into the office. And then I sit them down. And this is where you get to the, have you ever, try this. Have you ever been in a situation when you said something that you wish to God you could take back? Have you ever said something that you spoke in anger, did not represent your true feelings, and was stupid and embarrassing, and you made a fool of yourself? Have you ever done that, sir? Have you ever said words in anger to your wife that you wish to God you could take back, pull back out of the air? Yeah. Have you ever done that to somebody that you respected and you had full acknowledgement of their authority? You just said something that just thoughtlessly, stupidly, impetuously said? Yeah, I have. Sir, I'm finding myself in that same position right now. I did that with you. Sir, if you were in my position and I were in yours, how would you go about asking for a second chance? If you were in my position and I were in yours, how would you go about asking for a second chance? I've done this with people that have been fired for over a week and sent them back, and they're back at work at their job. Now, the only kind of job you want to do that as is a serious, high-paying job that you like. You know what's interesting is the next time the boss doesn't have the nerve to fire you again because he knows it's going to be miserable because you're going to be back in his office doing it again. So it makes it awfully hard. You ever tried to fire somebody, fire them, but they've got a wife at home and kids and kitty cats and doggies, and I can't afford to do that, and you hire them back. Next time it's double hard. Is that true or not true? Anybody tried to fire somebody and wimped out and then tried to fire them again? Harder the second time, agreed? Okay. That is a very useful way of doing a situation twice. Now, let me give you a romantic mind focus. You get in an argument and you say some things that are bitter and angry and don't represent your feelings. Maybe you've had some bad times in the past part of your relationship. Maybe you've had some bad things that occurred 5 years ago, 2 years ago, when you were a kid. Maybe you've got bad things in your past and you dump them all on your spouse. And they don't represent exactly how you feel for your spouse. And you wish to God you could take them back and retain your dignity. Because you can't retain your dignity if you admit and you grovel and say, I was totally wrong. Walk up to them and ask them, have you ever had the situation where, same thing I did with the boss, have you ever been in a situation where with somebody you really cared about, you've said things in anger, in haste, thoughtlessly, and stupidly, in a way that you wish you could take them back and start all over, and start the discussion over? Have you ever had that situation? They go, yeah. I find myself in that position with you right now. If you were me and I were you, how would you suggest that we start again from scratch and have an important discussion about something that's important to us? How could we do it? You know what they usually say is, well, we could just start now. People will give you a second chance. Is that true or not true? People are mostly pretty decent, pretty humane, and pretty reasonable. What are you doing when you're asking that? Is this a con? No, it's not. You're giving yourself a second opportunity to correctly communicate. Does that make sense or not make sense? Yes?
Not only doing that, you're also letting them know you care enough to go to the trouble to do it.
Yeah, because they know how much guts that takes. Has anybody here ever done this? Can I tell you I have done it? About 3 weeks ago, I had somebody interrupt a seminar I was giving. His boss gave me an hour and a half. He came in and tried to interrupt. And I was in the middle of a point. This guy kept going, showing me his watch. And I looked at him and I said, God damn it, it's an hour and a half seminar. Will you listen? Right? Thoughtlessly, shouldn't have done it. I'm giving a seminar on persuasion. I do something stupid like that. Right? That's true, it happened. And I turned to people in the audience and I said, you know, I think I owe every one of you in here an apology. I want to point out something to you. No matter how many times you've done it, no matter how many times in your life you think you got it down, sometimes you'll screw up because you'll thoughtlessly say something. I want to apologize to you. Will you accept my apology, please? Raise your hand if you'll accept my apology, and all the hands went up. I said, I want to thank you for allowing me a second chance. I had more people come up and say to me, boy, that took a lot of courage. It only takes courage the first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth time, the fifth time, the sixth time, the seventh time, and every other time.
Always.
So, always. It always takes, you're making yourself vulnerable when you apologize. What if they say, I'm not accepting your apology, screw you? That makes it even worse, doesn't it? But it's really rare that people will do that. Okay, now.
50 phone calls.
Would like the 50 phone calls. Now, I promised somebody that I would do something. Am I going to have to do that for you later? I will tell you the infamous gorilla story later. You want me to do that? All right, I will tell you that later. You promise?
Yes.
All right, I will tell you that later.
Okay, great.
Okay. Now, what are we doing with mind focus? What it is we're trying to help people reconceptualize how we're dealing with them, help them re-understand reality. Because you got to remember that words are like menus. You know, the menu is not the meal. The word is one way of describing what went on. But there might be any number of words to describe it. I've had people say, my wife raged at me. Raged. There's a word. Then someone else might say, she was angry with me. Someone else might say she was livid with me. Someone else might say she had a bad day and she took it out on me. Somebody else might say, she's on, anyway. Someone else might say something else. There are any number of ways of describing someone's dealings with you. Some can be positive and some can be negative. One person's assertiveness is another person's bitchiness, isn't it? Isn't that a matter of interpretation? One person's honesty is another person's brutal discussion. You know, he uses the truth like a bludgeon to hurt people. Oh, I used to watch this, and I love this. Humanistic psychologists used to do this. You know how you go, good morning, when you meet people in the morning, and it's an expression. It's instead of going, you know, whack, whack, which would be equally valid. It's a way of greeting people, right? And so these humanistic psychologists determined that was insincere. So guess what they did? Hi, I'm going to say good morning to you even though it's a rotten morning and I feel terrible. How are you? Oh, well, I'm glad to meet you too, idiot. How would you feel if somebody did that? Hi, I don't care much about you, but I'll tell you I love you because it'll make you feel better. God, thanks. Do me no favors. This was honesty as a bludgeon. You can try and use facts to hurt people. How do you really feel about me? Somebody can dump all their negative feelings toward you. But that doesn't represent their real understanding, the real context of their communication with you. When you're asking these questions, what you're doing is you're enabling people to recheck the facts and recheck their understandings. And that's true with all of us. Very often I'll do this with somebody. Let me give you a technique I learned in Gestalt. This is incredibly dumb. It's too simple. Try it with your partner. Try it with your boss. Try it with your customer. You're in a situation where you're discussing something with them and you're not getting through. Has anybody had that happen? All right. Am I getting through? Well, I've got to do it with you then. You have a situation where you're not communicating or you're not succeeding in a way you want to succeed. You're not producing the results you want. You're sitting in chair A. They're sitting in chair... Can I borrow this chair, please? They're sitting in chair B. I'm talking to my boss, trying to negotiate a life sentence instead of the death penalty for me. My boss is not hearing any of it. Say, excuse me, I met this guy in a seminar last week, and he suggested something that would really help me better understand where you're coming from. Could you help me with it? Notice the setup. I met this guy in this seminar last week on communication, and he told me a method that would help me, notice I'm the one who misunderstands, me better understand what you're saying to me. Would you help me with it? Now, what would be a pretty normal reaction? Well, sure. Could you get up from your chair? And they'll get up from their chair. Now, if they're behind the boss, if they're behind the desk, they're the boss, say, could you sit over here, please? All right? You sit in their chair and you say, now, I'll be you. You be me. Now, what should I be saying in order to reach you? You be me, and you communicate in a way that really works. And sit there and listen to them. And they will tell you everything you need to know in order to communicate with them. Your boss will tell you, well, what you ought to be saying is da-da-da-da. You go, tell me more. And they will make a case for you. This is equally true if you're having a misunderstanding with your spouse or with your kid. Ask your kid, you be me. You swap them chairs and you say, all right, now I was the one that hit my sister. And I was the one that came home at 8:30 and I said, I'd be home at 7:30. Now you talk to me in a way that would really get the point across that this is not good. Go ahead. You know what the kid will do? The kid will really do it right. The kid will go, you shouldn't be home on time. You know I care about you. And if you're home an hour late, I worry about you. You've been run over by a car, or you're in an accident and weren't wearing clean underwear, or something else was wrong. And the kid will communicate with you. And they say, would you do me a favor and swap me chairs again? Now you swap and you go back to your original chair. And then ask them, well, what do you think we learned here? Or, what should we do about it? And they will come up with a solution for you. If it's your boss, he'll offer a solution. Maybe you've been negotiating for a raise and he won't give you the $3,000 raise. He's taken your position. He's swapped back and he says, I can't give you the $3,000. How about if I give you $1,800? That's $1,800 more than you walked in the door with, isn't it? Your kid might apologize to you and say that he shouldn't watch TV that night. Maybe that's more stringent than you would have given your kid. Do you think they'd get the message if they had to walk a mile in your shoes? Because that's what you're asking them to do. The reason you do it with different chairs is so they can physically as well as mentally get in your shoes. The only way you can walk a mile in someone else's shoes is if you take off your own first. That's a way to enable your child to see it from your perspective. You ever hear the phrase, "You're not seeing it from my point of view"? You don't have this in proper perspective, but they do. Turn it around, swap them chairs. Now remember, I'm the one who suggested it to you, and I want you to set it up like that so that they don't think that you're doing something particularly weird. This way also, if it doesn't work, you say, "I knew he was wrong, darn, and I trusted him so." And then try something else. Now, these are different ways of communicating. These are different ways of getting points across. These are different ways of understanding and listening. You know, most of the problems we have with other people are not in the communicating area. They're not in what we say to them. It's usually in our understanding of them. We don't understand what they're really thinking. We're not really listening clearly to them very often. We're not precise enough in our understanding. We don't ask enough questions. Think about it. How many questions do you usually ask? Now I'm going to ask you a weird question. It's okay. During today, how many of you came to the weekend workshop? Were there? All right. Of those of you who were here for the workshop, how many of you, since you began the workshop, asked some questions that you hadn't thought of asking, some people you hadn't thought of asking them? Were the results better or worse? Better, raise your hand. Worse? Raise your hand. Maybe not sure. That's all right. Not sure is a measurement too. That's okay. What would happen if you asked more questions of more people? Would you get more answers? If you asked more precise questions, would you get more precise answers? See, we're taught not to ask questions. We're taught to assert things and say, "I understand." But it's hard to understand if we don't ask. And it's hard to understand if we're not curious. In all of our human relations, if we don't ask enough questions, we really find it awfully hard to get the right answer. Now, before we go, I promised to tell my famous gorilla joke. Because there are a lot of unfamous gorillas out there that don't know the story. Now, this is a story about communication. And I wouldn't dream of suggesting this had anything to do with you. Because it doesn't. I wouldn't dream of suggesting that you ought to particularly listen. I wouldn't dream of telling you that it'll have anything to do with your life. It seems that one day this man went to the zoo during lunch hour. This man had never been to the zoo. He wanted to look and see the new animals. He saw the giraffe. He saw the elephant. There's a gorilla exhibit. I love gorillas. Those are such cute animals. So he went over in front of the gorilla cage and he went, "Wow." And the gorilla went. The gorilla went. He put his hands down. The gorilla put his hands down. He says, "Oh, monkey see, monkey do." And the gorilla went. He went. The gorilla went. He went. The gorilla goes. He goes. The gorilla goes. He goes. The gorilla goes. He goes. The gorilla goes. The gorilla keeps doing it. He goes. The gorilla gets enraged, rips the bars open, comes out, beats the shit out of him, jumps up and down on like tourist or luggage, rips his arm, throws him down, jumps back in the cage, bends the bars together. Zookeeper comes over. "Oh my God, the gorilla attacked this man. Call the ambulance, send the guy to the hospital." The guy's in the hospital, is in traction. He's got both arms in cast, both legs in cast, his body in a total body cast. He's having to drink through a straw because a gorilla broke his jaw. He's got 2 black eyes, and he hurts. He comes out of the coma, and there's the zookeeper. "What happened? What happened?" He says, "The gorilla attacked you. Attacked me." "Well, what did he do?" The guy says, well, I can't exactly show you, but I'll tell you. So he described about doing this. And he described about doing this, and about doing this, and about doing this. And he described about doing this, and doing this. And then he got to the point, and he said, and then I pulled down on my right eye. And this guy goes, you idiot! Don't you know anything? In gorilla language, that is the most obscene gesture known in gorilladom. That makes the most offensive gesture you can think of totally obsolete. That's the worst. That's worse than talking about a gorilla's mother. That is worse than talking about his history. That's worse about claiming he did it with his wife. That is so obscene, there's not even a word for it in our language. You're an idiot. And the zookeeper stalks out, and this guy goes, that son of a bitch, I'm going to get the gorilla. 6 months later, after this man is semi-healed, he's not walking too good, but by God, he's going to get to the zoo because it's revenge time. He's walking down the street very rigidly, but he's walking. He's just got off the crutches, and he stops in at the butcher store. And at the butcher store, he gets an 8-inch salami, which he shoves down his pants. He goes next door. To the cutlery shop and gets a knife. A very, very sharp knife. He puts the knife in his back pocket and continues to walk relentlessly to the zoo in search of the gorilla that's gonna pay. This gorilla is gonna pay. Well, he couldn't shave while he was in the hospital, so his face has grown a beard. Well, actually, the beard was on the inside before, but now it's on the outside. And he's going to the gorilla's cage, and he walks past the giraffe's cage and the elephant's cage, and he sees the gorilla dead meat. And he looks at the gorilla and he goes, and the gorilla goes, the guy goes, and the gorilla goes, and he goes, the gorilla goes, and he goes, and the gorilla goes. He reaches in his back pocket and he pulls down his fly, takes out half the salami in his left hand. With a butcher knife, he slices it off, bites the end, throws it on the ground, and steps on it with his foot. And he hands the butcher knife to the gorilla. The gorilla looks at the man, he looks at the knife and goes, that too is communication. I went in with a little story. There's a story about a young Zen student who had been going to see, went to study under the Zen master, and the Zen master would not see him. And it was usually a test of devotion to turn the student down again and 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 again. And finally, after he'd shown enough motivation to show up forever, you accepted him as a student. The Zen student is not put off. He writes a letter to the master every day for a year. Writes a letter, I wish to be your student. I wish to be your student, sir. I wish to be your student, sir. I wish to be your student, sir. And finally, on the last day of the year, just before midnight, on December 31st, he experiences enlightenment. Full enlightenment, as only a Zen master could experience it. And he pens a final letter to the master. He said, great Zen master, thank you for your teaching. I have sent you 364 letters, and you have never written back. That too is an answer. Thank you. I'd like to say something to you tonight. Everything is communication. We communicate what we say and what we don't say, how we say it and how we don't say it, who we say it to and who we don't say it to. It's all a message. The question is, are we communicating the message we want to communicate? Are we communicating it well? And for that matter, the message we think they're sending, is it the one they're really sending? And are we asking to make sure that we're receiving what they're really sending? Because that's our way of finding out whether their message is sent from them and received by us, or sent by us and received by them. Because in the final analysis, what we have in life is an empty universe filled with full people. A dead universe filled with living people and living things. And the question is whether we're going to communicate with the living people and the living things and share a little bit of sunshine and love and communication and happiness. And the best way to do that is to find the shortest distance between two hearts and two minds. And I think you might find that one short road is mind focus. Thanks for coming. Yes?
Why are there, this is a communication topic, why are there so many homes for battered women?
As far as I can tell, many battered women, why are there homes for them, or why are there battered women?
So many.
Why are there so many battered women? Oh, I don't know. I have a question. Why do people who tell jokes like that usually get run over in the parking lot? A battered woman who's healed up. Oh, that's cold. You're lucky my sister didn't hear that. She got beat. She carries a pistol. She uses it. If there's anyone who did not get a set of either Mind Focus or the Essence of Political Persuasion tape, or if you would like one for a friend, I want to remind you that I'm giving both of those for a discount. The Political Persuasion tape usually sells for 30 Canadian. I'm selling it for 20. 3 tapes. Money back guarantee, 45 days. Robert will honor that, and I'll honor it through Robert, which you'll also get a tax credit for. And Mind Focus also, which deals with subjects we didn't deal with tonight, the tape. $20, money back guarantee, and that's 20 Canadian, even though I'm selling it for 22 in the US. And there's only 100 copies, and will only be 100 copies in existence ever. If you'd like a set, take advantage. If you'd like a set for a friend that you'd like to share an idea with, or an approach with, or like to break through some of the bullshit, so you can talk to them and they can talk to you, I'll be more than happy to take advantage of your courtesy and to share with you something that'll be more than worth the money you spend on it or invest on it. So if you'd like that, come up and I'll autograph them also. If you didn't get some last night. Do you have any messages?
Yes, and before anyone moves, Michael, I have a message for you.
Yes, sir.
Michael, once again, you've worked your magic on us. I think you've opened our minds, I think you've opened our hearts and our eyes and our ears, and I think we'd like to give you a little something to show our appreciation for you. I've got a card here. And while you're opening that and looking at what's in there, I'm just going to get something for you, and I'll be right back.
This is a card that says, has a dog holding onto a fire hydrant. It says, thanks. I was totally blown away. Thank you. And I'll keep this next. Did I tell you about the card my wife gave me? Those of you who weren't here last night, my wife had a card that on the front it had all these cattle standing in line. And at the front of it said, Bob's Slaughterhouse. And then you open it up, and one cow is saying to the other, I'd follow you anywhere. That was from my wife. And I'll keep this next to that. Thank you.
And here's another for you. You have to open it up in front of all of us.
Okay. You know I'm a sucker.
Just to make
You know I'm a
you
sucker
aware.
for sentiment.
As a collector of rare and unusual things.
This isn't one of Mark's ex-girlfriends.
No.
Because I'm not practicing safe package opening. Made in the USA. No, it's made in Korea.
The box is really... You can add this to your collection in your office. Yesterday, Michael and I were going through Galleria Mall, and he goes right into the cartoon store, says he's got a big thing of Wile E. Coyote.
I sure do.
And he was looking at this fellow there, and I said, yeah, I think he'd really appreciate that, because in a way, you know, in the world of statists and big government thugs, Michael, you are the Tasmanian devil of philosophy and technique. You cut right through the moment. So I hope you take that back with you and remember us every time you see it.
That's great. Every time I look at it, I'll remember your face.
Isn't he great?
Thank you.
Now explain that to customs.
I'll ask them to interview my friend. Isn't that wonderful?
Just wondering if you're planning to run for office again, or...
I have a couple of plans which I've sort of revealed to Robert, and let me be sort of candid. Can you turn off the camera on that second?
Sure.